We've been working on a product called Ledger Recover. The product was designed to help people who are coming into the space and they need help with that secret recovery phrase. That's a definitely a key moment of what should I do? What's the best thing to do with this? And there are many answers to that question. But from our perspective, many people, especially if we're going to get to hundreds of millions of users in crypto, are going to need help answering that question. And Ledger Recover is a product that was designed to help answer what to do with your secret recovery phrase and to provide you some peace of mind around that particular piece. It's always meant to be a for-pay service, monthly subscription, and in any case, always optional for users. But the news, really took on a life of its own. First of all, it came out in advance of us having all the materials available, so people had to speculate on exactly what it was. What it is and how it works was really confusing to people, and it uncovered a lot of confusion about how wallets work generally. So we've been dealing with that over the past 5 days. And of course, we've been, very reflective as a team on what should we do here? What's the right thing to do for the community? And we've been, listening, talking, thinking, working, and figuring out what we want to do and how we want to respond.
What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed, and in today's video, I want to touch on a controversial topic here surrounding a hardware wallet provider that is a Ledger. If you guys missed all the drama and all of the FUD surrounding Ledger Recover, I want to touch on exactly what that is and what the recent move or latest move is or has been from the Ledger team. So without taking up any more time, we are just going to jump straight into the official Ledger Recover website. So this is available at ledger.com/recover. Now, for those of you who are new to this particular story, this is going to be a feature that was previously announced on May 17th to the crypto community. And this is basically going to be a feature that will allow for users to recover their 24-word seed phrase using a centralized service. Now, as you can imagine, given the fact that this community is pro-decentralization, this particular update did not sit well with many within the community. So as we begin to see this actually roll out, what we saw was a lot of backlash, a lot of people breaking and throwing away their ledgers and basically vowing to never update to the appropriate version that would take advantage of this particular feature. Now, when they first rolled this out, this was meant to be just for the Ledger Nano X. And as of right now, I believe that is still the plan. And what I want to basically touch on now is the fact that Ledger Recover has now been postponed. So now that we better understand exactly what Ledger Recover is and exactly what the Ledger team was planning on doing, I want to touch on what was addressed as a part of this latest meeting that came through as a part of a Twitter space with the key members or the top management of Ledger and the greater crypto community. So jumping back out of here, what I want to do is touch on some of the key points. I've also got a nice brief snippet from one of the Ledger developers breaking down exactly how Ledger Recover works and exactly what they're doing to mitigate the majority of the community's concerns. And then at the very end of this video, I want to touch on some of the pros and cons of non-custodial wallets as well as custodial wallet options. So all of that said, again, in a nutshell, the official Ledger Recover feature has now been postponed by the Ledger team. This was set to roll out over the course of this actual week, but that has now been stopped. Now, the team has said that they will be rolling it out when the time is right, but they have yet to give us a specific date. So understanding that, what we do know is that this is going to be rolled out as a paid service. And so if you're looking to take advantage of a feature like Ledger Recover using your Ledger Nano X, which is going to be the first device that it's going to roll out on, you'll be able to do that. And I believe that it's going to be somewhere around the ballpark of $8 to $10 per month. Again, keep in mind that they are postponing it. And so once they reinstate it, the amount that you're going to be billed per month could vary differently or greatly. Next, I want to talk about the fact that the Ledger team openly apologized to the community, and they were very transparent in the fact that they should have probably open sourced their code and done a better job of communicating the release of Ledger Recover, and that was a blunder that they themselves made. I give them a lot of credibility here in this particular area because I do completely agree that they could have done a better job of rolling it out, and they also could have taken a ton of other precautionary measures in rolling it out to make sure that people were not only educated, but people were also on board with this feature. Now, they did also mention that they did some polling before actually releasing this feature, and that this was something that the community had asked for. Now, I'm not sure when that poll would have occurred, but given the fact that we're in the bear market right now, I am not necessarily sure that there's a lot of people who are new to this space or people that would be pro custody instead of non-custodial. I think the majority of people that are here right now, especially in this bear market, are all going to be pushing towards a non-custodial approach. And I personally believe that that is exactly what we've seen with the release of Ledger Recover. So moving on, what they next talked about as a part of this Twitter space, which again, if you guys stick around here, I'm going to be playing a brief excerpt, and I'm also going to leave the link to the full Twitter space down in the description below, was the fact that Ledger is currently built to solve two separate problems. So problem number one is going to be onboarding. And the way that they plan on solving this will be through the use of what they call Ledger Stacks. So this is going to be a brand new crypto wallet, which was just released and demoed, I believe, no more than about 5 to 6 months ago. Now, as a part of the Ledger Stacks utility, right, they're going to be basically trying to make this as simple and as user-friendly as possible. They've got a big, nice, bright LED screen on there. It runs off of minimal power, and there's a few other key benefits that really just make it very simple for a beginner who's coming into the space to pick it up and adopt their crypto. The second problem that they're looking to solve is going to be the 24-word seed phrase management. Now, as you guys are aware, we have 12-word, 15-word, and 24-word seed phrases that basically allow for you to access your crypto. If you lose that, so are your funds are basically gone, right? So what they're trying to do is not only simplify the onboarding process, they're also trying to simplify the management of that 24-word seed phrase, given the fact that it's so crucially important to the security of your crypto. Time and time again, we hear stories about people that take their 24-word seed phrase and they mismanage it, and they've got wallets with hundreds, if not millions of dollars worth of assets that are basically locked and gone forever, given the fact that they've lost their 24-word seed phrase. So this is the second problem that they're aiming to fix. And again, that's going to be for the majority of the crypto community. And I can personally say that I haven't actually run into this issue per se, but I could definitely see it being a real possibility, right? With new people coming to the space with little to no knowledge as to how crypto works, or maybe they're just bad with, keeping things private, or maybe somehow it gets out to somebody else. But this is exactly the two issues that the Ledger team is trying to resolve. Again, number one, onboarding, and then number two, the 24-word seed phrase management. That said, as a part of this Twitter space, they highlighted the following features. Number one, they're going to be moving to expedite their open source roadmap. So as I mentioned before, the Ledger team did an amazing job of acknowledging the fact that they basically made a blunder, right? They didn't actually open source their code prior to releasing the Ledger Recover feature, knowing that the community would basically be nitpicking them and asking them to see exactly how this would work. A lot of the initial feedback here was surrounding backdoors that could be implemented using Ledger or taken advantage of, I should say, by the Ledger team and anybody else who has access to the Ledger software. So in order to mitigate that, they're going to be expediting their open source code roadmap. On top of that, they also mentioned that they do have portions of their existing code base that is currently available as open source code. Now, this is going to be a little bit of news for me personally. I thought that their entire code base or repository was fully closed, but there are pieces that are already available to the public that are open source. Now, in addition to that, they also did mention that they'll be gradually open sourcing their operating system and that some of the key countermeasures that they have in place for Ledger cannot be open source. So this is a tough one here because, again, we want to make sure that they're transparent. but they can only be so transparent to an extent, given the fact that they do have specific countermeasures in place to fight against potential hacks or exploits in place that they can't necessarily share with the community. So I understand that. But it would be great to see if there's some kind of maybe middle ground that we can reach with the Ledger team in order to be able to better understand what those countermeasures are and exactly how safe they are, and the fact that they're not going to impact the community in the event of some kind of exploit or some kind of data breach. Next, they talked about the fact that they're going to be open sourcing their white paper for the Recover protocol. Again, this is going to be focusing strictly on Ledger Recover. So all of the recovery features and all the exact steps as to how the Recover portion of the platform will work will eventually become open source. Now, this last part here that I want to touch on is going to be arguably one of the most important pieces here that was discussed as a part of this Twitter space. So the team officially announced that they're going to be allowing developers to build their own shard recovery backend. And so this is going to be a little bit of a touchy subject here, but in summary, if you're using Ledger Recover, they're going to be taking your 20 forward seed phrase, breaking that down into 3 separate shards and providing that to 3 separate custodial providers. As long as you're able to KYC using a driver's license, a passport, or anything of that nature, you'll be able to recover at least 2 portions of that shard or of the shards. And once you have 2/3, you can actually recover the full recovery phrase. That said, as a part of this particular bit of news here, what I'm wondering, number one, is will people be able to select the custodial shard holders? And will people be able to also select exactly how the 24-word seed phrase is actually sharded up? If that is the case, again, I think that's going to build a little bit more trust, given the fact that different providers and different users would be able to build out their own sharding back end. Now, exactly how difficult is this going to be is going to be another question, and exactly how accessible is this going to be to the average crypto person will also be another question. So if they do make this feature available and it's relatively easy and people can kind of create their own sharding recovery backend, that would be great. But if it requires extensive knowledge, then I don't see a lot of people taking advantage of that. So that said, that is going to wrap it up there for everything that was discussed as a part of the actual Twitter space. The majority of their responses were surrounding open sourcing and building community trust. And again, I'm going to be playing that here for you guys in just a moment. Now, as a part of the very last portion of this video, I want to touch on some of the pros and some of the cons of using a non-custodial wallet versus a custodial option. Now, if you're not familiar with what a non-custodial option is, this is going to be a wallet that you basically have full control over versus a custodial option, which is one that a third party has access to. So jumping into the non-custodial pros first, the first pro is going to be surrounding control. So using your own wallet and having the 20-forward seed phrase for it provides you with 100% of the control, given the fact that there's no intermediaries and there's nobody able to access that wallet. Number 2 is going to be security. Again, there's going to be no third parties involved, and you'll basically be the sole manager of your own assets. Number 3 is going to be privacy. So there's going to be no personal information given out if you're using a non-custodial wallet. Again, there's going to be anonymity, given the fact that we're going to be using a blockchain, and you're not going to have to go under any KYC or know your customer and AML, anti-money laundering background checks if you're using a non-custodial wallet. The very last pro is going to be decentralization. Again, given the fact that there's no intermediaries and you're able to interact directly with the blockchain, therefore taking the power out of a centralized platform, controlling the majority of people's assets or wallets. Some of the cons include, number 1, responsibility. So as the user or as the sole proprietor of the 20-forward seed phrase, you are fully responsible for your assets. If you do lose that 20-forward seed phrase, it's completely gone. And again, there's no way to recover that. And that's exactly where Ledger Recover comes in. If you're more of a newer user looking to take some of that burden off of you and leverage a custodial wallet. Number 2 is going to be technical knowledge in terms of non-custodial cons. So you'll have to be a little bit familiar with how the blockchain works in order to be able to build transactions directly using your wallet. But again, I find that if you're in this space for the long term, it's going to be something that you necessarily have to figure out sooner or later. Think of it as the adoption of computers. I'm sure that back in the day, a lot of people didn't necessarily see the need to understand how development works. But as we grow and as we get more tools, that becomes one of the essential core functions into understanding computers and the technology that we have at our fingertips today. Number 3, in terms of non-custodial cons, is going to be user experience. Again, given the fact that you're going to be having to do a lot of this by yourself because there is no third party involved, there will be a steeper learning curve as to understanding different wallets. For example, we've got Nami, Yoroi, Daedalus. We've also got Eternal, which are all different in their own nature. Some of them provide more options, some of them provide less options, etc. Now, jumping into the last portion here, I want to talk about the custodial wallets and some of the pros associated with those kinds of wallets. So the first pro surrounding or relating to custodial wallets is going to be convenience. So using a custodial wallet, it's going to be basically taken care of by somebody else. The wallet creation will be managed by a third party, and so will the asset management. So if you're looking to kind of be a little bit hands off and not necessarily have to worry about all the ins and outs, and you want a very simple user interface, again, provided by some kind of third party, then you can leverage something like a custodial wallet. The second pro will be security. And so using a custodial wallet, you'll be able to get additional security methods, including two-factor authentication, as well as identity verification. Now, keep in mind that this requires for you to give away a part of your identity, and it also potentially requires for you to undergo KYC or AML background checks. The third pro surrounding custodial wallets is going to be the account recovery. And so this is exactly where Ledger Recover comes in. Using a third party, you'll be able to potentially recover your wallet if you ever forget or lose your 20-forward seed phrase, which we have, again, seen time and time within this space, right? So if you're looking to, again, be hands off, get some of these security features in place, then this would be a big benefit here, again, with the ability for a third party to be able to recover your wallet in case you lose your 20-forward seed phrase. The very last pro here when it comes to custodial wallets is going to be user support, given the fact that because you're dealing with a centralized authority, they most likely will have some kind of help desk or user support platform to help you troubleshoot or ask any question that you may have throughout any time of the day. Now, in terms of cons, before we wrap up this video, the first con of custodial wallets is going to be a lack of control. I don't think I need to harp on this anymore. Again, a third party is basically going to have access to your funds. They'll be able to see your funds and basically manage it, given the fact that they can recover your wallet again, right? So while it is your wallet, don't get too comfortable if something were to go awry or if you were to get subpoenaed or whatever, happens with the platform, given the fact that your assets are in their custody, those could be gone along with them. So that's number one in terms of cons for custodial wallets. Number 2 is going to be privacy concerns. And I just kind of touched on this before, but you will have to give away some of your identity in order for them to create a custodial wallet. Now, that comes with the cons of them being able to recover it. But again, this is up to you as to how much information you're willing to give away in order to be able to enjoy some of the ease of life features, which include 24-hour support and the ability to recover your 20-forward seed phrase if you're able to lose it. Very lastly is going to be centralization. And this, again, is pretty simple because you're dealing with a centralized party here. They're basically going to be in control of everything. And this drives centralization, which right now we know is a big problem, not only within crypto, but even within the Web2 space. For example, think of the likes of Amazon, think of the likes of Google, Facebook. These are all big platforms that have kind of monopolized their field, and they're kind of the one go-to spot or the centralized location for the services that they provide in their respective fields. And so in a decentralized environment, which we're looking for here in crypto, this would go against our nature. That said, that is going to do it there again here for today's video. In closing, I do want to mention that we did see a partnership with Clay Nation and Ledger, which has been postponed given the fact that the Ledger Recover feature was recently released with a lot of that backlash. Now, given the fact that they're going to be postponing it, I am curious as to what the actual Clay Nation team will be doing, and I'll be keeping you guys updated as soon as they release more information surrounding their path taking forward. That said, I'm going to turn you guys over now to this brief recording here, which was just recorded as a part of the Twitter space held earlier today. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys found this video to be helpful or insightful, then please make sure to tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content like this surrounding crypto, then consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions for me surrounding Ledger or Cardano, then make sure to leave those down in the comment section below. At this time, I hope you guys enjoyed this Twitter space recording, and I will see you guys in the next video.
So I think that, we all, we've been really clear, our mission here at Ledger is to bring the world to crypto, to let them be there securely with self-custody, but try to bring them ease of use without ever compromising those two things. I think what we heard from the community was, that we were pushing these things together in a way that A, they didn't understand, or B, made them feel uncomfortable. So Charles, I know that you and the team have worked to address those specific concerns. So can you tell us, what's in the tweet thread that you put out today, and how we're addressing this to make people more comfortable with the solution that we're pushing going forward?
Yes, sure. Thank you for the introduction. As Pascal said, Ledger's mission has always been security and ease of use. For security, we have invested a lot of time and resources. We are using the best solution out there. We are using a smart card chip that we call also a secure element. There's Secret implements tons of hardware countermeasures enabling physical resistance against a high potential attacker, even if they have a physical access. So we have made the choice to design the most secure product as we could, and smart card technologies gives strong guarantees that the device is genuine, that it has not been tampered, and this kind of thing, which is quite unique. And this solution comes with a drawback. We are not able to completely open source every single bit of the operating system because it leverages some proprietary countermeasures. But what we want to do, what we have always wanted to do, is to minimize the level of trust the user needs to put into Ledger. This is what we want to do, and this is what we are going to accelerate. And in order to minimize this level of trust, we have decided to accelerate our open source roadmap. And what I'd like to say first is, as of today, most of our code base is already open source. You can have a look at our GitHub account. We have, I think, something like 300 public repository. So most of our code base is open source. Ledger Live is open source, and a lot of software that we build are open source. And when it comes to the firmware part, as I mentioned, we have a few requirements, but we have recently open sourced our crypto library. Our SDK is open source for years. This is what third-party developers are using to build apps. Like when you use the Bitcoin app, the Ethereum app, or any kind of app running on the device, they are open source and mostly written by the community. And what we announced today is that we want to go further. So concerning Recover, we'll start with open sourcing the white paper of the protocol. So it's going to be very easy and clear for every single cryptography and security expert to have a look to the protocol, to get more guarantees and understand how it works. It will also allow developers to build their own shard backup provider. So you can use the recovery service as it's offered by Ledger, but if you want to build the backup on your own, this will be possible. And finally, we are going to open source the firmware part that implements the recovery functionality within the operating system. This is, for me, this is a requirement for releasing the feature. So as long as we did not release this part of the code, we won't release the recover feature. So for the sake of transparency, so that anyone can inspect the code. And finally, we are going to gradually open source a larger part of the operating system. This has always been something important for Ledger, but this recent event showed how important it is for the community, and this is why we have decided to prioritize this open sourcing process.
Okay, cool. So thanks to you both. We have, I think we've got kind of, both big ideas out there. We've heard from Pascal and his letter, and Charles, you've given us kind of the path forward. And then what I want to do is take the opportunity to ask you guys, and Nico and Eric as well, the follow-up questions, so that we can really get everyone to a point of understanding. Because I'd like people to understand as deeply as possible everything that you guys just said, what we have planned, a little more about the what and why, and the other concerns that we've seen people say, so that we can get them all answered and out there in the open. So first, just a bit of a recap, so everyone understands. Ledger Recover is a service that provides for a backup of the secret recovery phrase. I think that there were a couple of things fundamentally that people reacted to with that. One was, wait, how is that possible? And we're going to cover that in a second. And the other is, does that fundamentally change, the security of Ledger? Now, people that were more technical, they really double clicked on that, and they push on, the parts of, Ledger that aren't open source, and say, well, if you don't show us the code, then we can't verify it does, what it is you're saying. So what you're really saying, as the high level solution to the community is, we hear you. Actually, we want to open source as much of, make our code verifiable, as much of our code verifiable to you as possible. That's always been part of our roadmap. It's part of our ethos. It's part of our roadmap. We hear you. Kind of getting ahead of ourselves and launching Recover before we've made that code verifiable is not comfortable for you. Like we heard you. So what we're going to do is hit the pause button, do that code factoring that we need to do to make more of our operating system, verifiable, make more of that code verifiable to you, starting with Ledger Recover. Do I have the basics correct, Charles?
Yes, this is exactly that. This is a very good summary, and frankly, I was a little bit surprised by a few reactions by the community, but frankly, one of the big question was how can we trust the code and so on. So I think the straightforward answer is to provide our users with all the tools, all the information to be able to verify.